Hi friends, let's see the app we are going to develop in the next couple of lessons. When you run this app, this is the main option screen. You will see a menu which is on a table view. So I can click on say employee options, then it will load this data, and all the employee data are loaded dynamically from a data source, right? And then I can click on employee, and then it's dynamically changing this page with that particular employee and the projects. If I go back and click another employee, you can see the same page is dynamically changing with that employee and the projects, which are all loaded dynamically. The images are also loaded dynamically from a data source, right? So it's different images loaded dynamically. And then I can delete employees. Let's say I can swipe and say delete, then it deletes the data, right? If not, I can click on edit and say if I want to delete something, click on this and click delete, right? And when I'm done, I can say done, right? And then further I can insert data dynamically. Let us say a section P and say Peter, for example, and click OK. So it all gets added dynamically, right? Then once I'm done with employees, I can go scroll down, right? And then I can go into department options, right? So department, and do the same thing for department, right? But it's very important that you have to make sure to look at the next couple of lectures in this on table views, that is part 1, 2, 3, etc., until we complete this app. It explains all the theory and the practical knowledge which you need to know about developing this app, right? Okay friends, we are very excited to show you how to develop this app practically, and let's do it now. Okay friends, so the following is the outcome of this part of the lesson. When you complete this part of the lesson, your app will look like this until you complete the other parts of the lesson. It will display a list of employees, right? And it's very important note that this time it's using table views, not UITableView Controller. It's UITableView, and this app shows you why you have to use UITableView sometimes instead of UITableView Controllers. It's a very important app for you to understand to develop the complete app. But after you complete this lesson, make sure to go and look at the next lessons in order to complete the full app demonstrated earlier. Hi friends, so this lesson is Table Views, Dynamic Content UI Table View Part 2, and I'm very excited to take you into this lesson and explain what's inside it. So let's go and do it now. So tools used in this lecture will be Xcode version 11.4.1 for practicals and Apple Developer Docs for referencing. Prerequisite, you have to look at the following previous lessons on table views in Objective-C in this series. You have to look at table view static content, practicals we did, table views dynamic content, UI table view controller, part 1 to part 5 practicals, and table views dynamic content, UI table view part 1 practicals we have done in this, right? Make sure you look at those before this lesson. You have to look at some of the previous basic lessons on Objective-C in this series as well, right? So in previous sessions, you learned the two approaches possible to create table views, that is using UITableView Controller and then using UITableView. Now you have seen both the approaches if you look at our previous lessons. In this session, you will learn like why we use UITableView instead of UITableView Controller sometimes, right? Let's see why we use UITableViews, right? Lesson plan, again, practical demonstration. So let's look at the lesson. So this is where we stopped in the previous lesson. Let's run it just to make sure that we all are in the same page, right? Okay, just let's run it to see that we remember what we did, right? So what we did was we created a table view, right? And quickly, this time it's not a table view controller. If you remember, it's just a table view. So in our storyboard, we just dragged a table view, and over here it's just connected to a table, just to a view controller, right? And that view controller, we made sure that we are adhering to the two protocols, UITableView data source and UITableView delegate, and we use only the data source, not the delegate, right? The delegate we'll use in the next lesson just after this. And in the view controller, we made sure that we override the necessary methods, right, to get this done. And that is how we have got this output. Now the focus in this lesson is, our focus is why we use UITableView instead of UITableView controller sometimes, right? So why we use UITableView, right? So the answer is this, guys, right? Now let's say you got a situation like this. Let's say in your screen, right, it's not only the table view you want to have, right? Let's say you want to display a description, let's say you want to display some text, right, and stuff like that. So let me show it to you, right? That is where you will use the UITableView instead of using UITableView controller, right? So let's see. Let me show it to you, right? So let me do it this way. So let me uh, just bring it to a situation where I don't use the entire okay, I don't use the entire area, right, for the table view, right? So let's say I'm using only some part of the screen, and then this is the important part. Let's say I need to have a label, right? So say say if this is what my designer wants, right? So if this is what my designer wants to do, let's say he wants me to have a label. Let's say then he want me to have some buttons, right, in his design, right? So I have to stick to that, right? Because if my designer says this is what he wants, right? And let's also say he want some label with some lengthier description, right? So about this particular, I don't know, about something in detail, right, about the company or something like that, right? We don't, it's just to say that, that if you have a couple of things, right, that's what I mean, right? Okay, so let's put this here, right, some text right over here, and then let's do some let's say that I got couple of buttons, right? And let's do some property, let's change some properties now. Okay, so I just gave some properties, I just gave some colors and added some colors. Let's say this label is bit detail label, right? Let's say that this is the detailed text. I'm just give some sample text I want to display here, right, in this label. So let's go and give that as the content of the label, right? So you see a lengthier content. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the auto layout properties, right? Because now I got a screen with some labels and with table view, UI table view, and some buttons. So very important to set the auto layout properties so that it things gets, things gets universally adapted, right? So if you are not sure about auto layout and adaptive user interface, look at our lessons on adaptive UI and universal application design, right, in this series, right? We have done it before this lecture, right? So okay, look at them, right? If you need to know what I'm doing now, right? So what I'm doing is I'm just going to apply some auto layout properties. Let's say the gap, okay, let's say the top space, and let's say that I want to center this, right, center horizontally. And then this label, let's say I want to bring it and put multiple lines in that. Let's say, okay, in the properties of the label, let's say I want a couple of lines, right, say 3 lines. And then let me expand it, right, the label. Okay, let me just click it, and let me bring it, right? So let's reduce it from this side, right? Let's catch it, right? Let's expand it a little bit, and then let's bring it towards this, right, towards left hand side. So let me pull it from the corners and just bring it towards this side. Let's pull this also from the corners. Let's bring them, right? So let's bring it here now, right? And let's increase the number of lines in that. Okay, let's say I got 4 5, because I got a lengthier text in that, right, if you remember. So let's set that. Awesome, right? So wonderful. And let's justify the content, right? Awesome. So this just to show you that this is what my designer requires me to do. Think like that, right? If this is what your designer requires you to do, right, that is to put a label, right? Awesome. And then further we will bring the table view slightly down. I'm bringing it a little bit down, then I'm bringing the label a bit down. and then I'm going to say, okay, I need this. Now I'm going to set the auto layout properties from the label constraints to the label. So I'm going to control drag and then set the vertical spacing to that, right? And then let's say I want to center this, right? Center horizontally, right? Okay, I got a few things. And then this table view, I'm going to constrain that to this label, right? The table view. So I'm going to constrain this table view to this label and set the vertical spacing, right? And then let's say I want to constrain the table view, let's say trailing space, and then let's say this is the leading space I want, right? Something like that. And then the buttons, let's say I want them to have constraint to the table view, right? Vertical spacing, and then this one towards the left, let's say the leading space, right? And then this button I want to constrain okay, give me a sec. So let's constrain this from here to here and say I want to constrain the tops, right? So let me say what I'm going to put here. So I'm going to constrain the horizontal spacing, and then I'm going to make sure that it's constrained to the top of it so that they get aligned, right? Okay, awesome. Now let's run and see whether my basic structure is in action, right? So let's run. Let's see whether there are any errors or issues, right? Okay, let's run this and see what's going to come, right? So we have put some constraints. Let's see whether we have missed anything, right? Okay, so I'm not getting what I want. That means it's an issue with constraints. So I'll go and check my constraints, right? So let's go and check the constraints, right? Awesome. Okay, let's see what's happening. So this is to do with this constraint. So if you look here, now you can see there's a red color error here, just like so. When I click here, it says there are missing constraints. So if I click here, it says add missing constraints, right? For reset table view and next, this will enough. So I can get the help of adding the missing constraints from the system. So I just clicked on it, right? And let's see anything else is there, right? So what does it says, right? This is what does it say here? Decrease the vertical hugging. Okay, so change the priority. Let's do that. I'm just using whatever the suggestions made here because my focus is not on the auto layout thing, right? My focus is on the table view controllers. So look at our auto layout lessons where the added to user interface and auto layout, where when you look at, so now to a certain extent I can see that it's there, but still the label has to be corrected. So let me do that as well now, right? So let me click on this, the label, right? Let's look at this, the structure. Give me a sec. Let's go to the storyboard. Okay, let's expand this, right? Let's look at and also one thing I'm going to do, just for my simplicity, I'm going to arrange this in the order. So at the top it's list of employees. I'm going to put this to the top. You don't worry about that, right? But if you do it very carefully without breaking the alignment, indentation, child, and this where is it? This is my next label. Then I got this. Yeah, so you have to be careful if you are doing it yourself, right? So I'm going to apply few things. I'm going to update the frames because I need to do a few things, right? So I'm going to click on this and I'm going to click on the label and I'm going to remove some of the constraints of it as well, right? Because of certain issues with the constraints. So I'm going to remove all these constraints, right, of the label, right? I'm just removing all of them because I don't see it in the proper place, right? So I'm removing this constraint. So if you don't know about these constraints, please have a look at our previous lessons on adaptive user interface, right? So I removed the constraints and I'm going to put them back, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the label, right? And I'm going to, okay, let's look at the number of lines. It's 7, that's fine, right? And then I'm going to bring it back, right? So I'm going to click on it, right? Reduce the height, bring it here, okay, bring it, and then I'm going to expand this a bit and then increase the number of lines. So this is all to do with these constraints and stuff like that. So now I'm going to once again, apply the constraints. So I'm going to say is I'm going to say, okay, I need a gap, right, from this to the label, right? So I'm going to say that is the vertical spacing, right? And I'm going to give some space from the two sides, trailing space. Then I'm going to give the leading space, right? Okay, and I'm going to see whether there are any issues. This is the list of employees, right? So misplaced views, right? So update the frames, fix the misplaced ones, right? So this is to do with the auto layout, right? So what does this says, right? Use fix trailing constraints, confirm. So this is to do with auto layout, right? Don't worry. So you have to make sure you look at our lessons on auto layout if you can't understand this. Let me run this now, right? So our focus is on just the UI table view, right? And then, but in the process, we have to deal with the rest of the stuff as well. Okay, awesome, right? Now I got this right with setting the auto layout constraints, right? Awesome, friends. Now I got a list of employees, and I got a description. Then I got a UI table view, which we have done, and some buttons. Now this is what the focus of this lesson is, right? So in this lesson, we said you will learn that why. Okay, look at this. Why we use the UI table view instead of UI table view controller sometimes. Now this is the reason, because in a UI table view controller you can't do what I did now. Because if you put a UI table view controller, I will show it to you, right? I will keep it aside and put a UI table view controller and show it to you, right? Table view, right? The thing in the UI table view controller is, right? If I put a table view controller, guys, in the table view controller, the entire screen is filled with the table view, right? So it's the entire content is a table view. So I don't have space to put anything else, like let us say this extra headings, extra labels, right? Because the table view is occupying the entire table view controller, right? So that is the choice for you. If you are okay with that, if what you have to do is only displaying something on a table view, then you can go for a table view controller. But if you have to display extra things in addition to the table view, like buttons, labels, and few other things, then you have to go for what I did right now, which is you just put a view controller, and then into that you put a table view, UI table view, and you put your other stuff and put your auto layout constraints, right? So now hope you understand the difference. Because in a table view controller, it entire area is occupied with the table view. So if that is what you want, go for your table view controller. But if you want some extra stuff like I did, like buttons and stuff like that, you go for a normal view controller, and then you just put a table view and you put the constraints, and then what you do is, so now I'm going to delete this, right? I don't need it, because we have done this earlier, right? Look at our previous lessons on how to use your table view controllers, right? Look at that. And anyhow, then what I did was, as usual, the usual business is to adhere, confirm to these protocols and override the methods as usual, right? That's usual business, my friends. And then you will see outcome. Let us say that this is what your designer wants, right? If this is what your designer wants, yes, we have done it, and that's what we focus, right? So how do we get this custom out? So let's see what's next now. So awesome, friends, we completed that part, and then conclusion, right? So why we use your table view instead of your table view controller sometimes, now you know the answer. We did some practicals. You can find the link to download the source code for the projects done in this session in the relevant download section in this series. Reference, we use Apple Developer Docs. What's next? Have a look at our other videos and practicals on table view dynamic content event handling. Now guys, it's very important for you to understand that so far we did not do any event handling, right? So far we covered both the approaches, that is UI table view controller approach, and now we covered UI table view approach, but we now we are yet to write the events. So that is the next lesson so the next lesson is, let me talk, it's table view dynamic content event handling part 1 is the next lesson, right? How do you do the click events and how do you perform those? For that you will be using UI table view delegate protocol and doing it, right? So have a look at our other videos on Objective-C A to Z in this series. Also make sure to have a look at our other series on machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science and IoT, because that's where the future is, guys, right? Awesome, guys. So it was a very exciting session and you all learn a lot in this series. You are learning a lot and we are excited to see you in our next lesson, and see you until that.